Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books. What a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together. What a yummy snack. PBJamz. Yummy books and music. PBJamz. Reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz.
Good morning or afternoon or evening or whatever time of day it is that you are joining us. We might look a little familiar to you because, gosh, Jana, this is our third time together, I think. Is that
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Oh, I love talking with Jana, and she and I have so much in common, and one of which is the love for musical picture books. And so we've been here before for Here We Come, and then we did the gardening book, which was so fun. I loved that one.
Over in the garden. Yes.
Over in the garden. Thank you. Yes, I was having a brain cramp in the moment. Yeah, over in the garden. So fun. And now today we are going to be talking about Baby Let's Go to the Orchestra. And Jana and I were just chatting about the similarities in this book and my upcoming book and talking about those instruments and bringing them into the classroom. So, yeah, I'm so excited to talk with you about your brand new book.
Thank you. Me too. So good to be here. Thanks, Tani.
Yeah, it's been a busy year for Jana. This is like what your third book that's come out in a very short amount of time. So it's been
Yes,
super busy. And how nice is that to have that level of success? And often it's about the timing. We talked about.
it is. Yes. The two of the books took almost 5 years to come out, and one of them was right around two. And so they just all happened to converge right in this lump, which I didn't expect. So it's been an exciting past 13 months or so. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting and tiring and busy and all the things.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about Baby Let's Go to the Orchestra, and this is such a sweet little book. The illustrations are precious. The text is just very sweet. It's very Jana Matthias-ish. It's very, I mean, you have a definite kind of voice that comes through in all of your
Thank
books, I
you.
think. Yeah,
Mhm.
so sweet. A little rhyming text. And the illustrator pulled in all these little childhood toys, which I think is just so sweet. I was just looking back
Mhm.
over. It's just precious, precious, precious. So talk to us about where this idea came from. Why did you decide to write this book, and how did it come to be?
Yeah. Well, that is kind of a funny question in this case because I am not the reason that this book came about. This is the
Oh,
first experience I've ever had where my agent came to me and suggested that I write something, knowing that I am a music teacher like Tani is, and we both work with the littles. I'm pre-K, K first, Tani's K1 and 2.
yep.
So we're both in the music classroom all the time and singing songs and working with instruments and um, trying to help children come alive to the world of music that's out there that many of them have not been exposed to at this age and maybe wouldn't be in their lives except for having the chance in a classroom. So my agent was familiar with that, and she had a client who is very involved in the arts, an illustrator client who had painted a bunch of pieces that showed cats. This illustrator was really into cats that showed childlike, playful cats playing different instruments of the orchestra. So I will give full credit to my agent, Rachel Orr of Prospect Agency here, who came to me and said, "Hey, what would you think of first of all, writing text to go with these pictures?" And she said, "I was kind of thinking of," and I mean, the idea was entirely hers. And I had
Okay.
never experienced this before. She said, "What would you think of writing short poems to go with each painting?
Okay.
And we could call it something like, 'Kitty, let's go to the orchestra.'" And so I wrote poems, and we sent it off to a few publishers. And I think it was the third one said, "We love this, but we're not interested in the cat art. We want just the poems." And then we would hire we would choose our own
Oh,
illustrator and publish a different book. And so then it felt a little bit like oh, shoot,
Yeah,
this wasn't supposed
exactly.
to work like that. But my agent assured me that this happens. You know,
Okay.
sometimes I have words
Right.
and she may send a sample from one of her illustrators to go along with it. And an editor may not choose to purchase, to acquire my manuscript, but they might say, you know what, I love this illustrator. I
Right.
have another project, and then the illustrator has an opportunity. So this, um, again, this was over 5 years ago when Rachel and I had
Yeah.
this conversation. I since have come to learn that this does happen a lot, and it goes
Right.
both ways. So at any rate, I tweaked the poems a little bit after they acquired it, but very little, just a few words that took out any reference to cats because we weren't
Right.
going with cats.
Right.
And it's Baby, Let's Go to the Orchestra. And it's geared toward little ones. There are some wonderful books that are a little bit more teachy, a little bit more pedantic about the orchestra and for older kids. And there are even some that appeal to little ones too. I mean, you and I both probably love Zin Zin Zin, a violin,
Yes.
which is a much more complex book. And the little
Yeah.
ones can listen to it and enjoy it, but it's a lot to take in. There are some other wonderful ones. But at any rate, again, I wrote these short poems, and then the illustrator who they ended up choosing, her name is Monique Felix or Felix. I'm not sure how she says it. She's from Switzerland and very prolific illustrator in Europe. And she decided to take the poems out of the realm of a literal symphony hall, orchestra hall, stage setting, and turn it into this really cute, as you said, this adorable setting where we have a little girl who is pretending to be a conductor. And we find over the course of the books that all of these little stuffed animals who are illustrated as playing the instruments and being kind of like a little ensemble, an orchestra that she's put together in her room in front of her red curtains that are like stage curtains. So it's so creatively done. That's how the book came about.
I love that. What a unique origin story. Like that is super fun. Yeah, you don't hear about that very often. But I do. I love. Let me just grab. I want to just show I this is my favorite illustration. I love this little the little blanket bear
Yes,
playing the I just love that.
uh-huh.
So sweet. So and
I
then
do too.
there's the little giraffe. Like, I mean, they're all just absolutely precious. So,
Yes. And she
so
has this cute
fun
spotlight behind them, so you still get the feeling that they're on
on
stage,
stage.
but
Yeah,
it makes that stage performance, concert going experience seem much more accessible and warm and fuzzy.
it does. And I love, as you were talking about that, I thought, two things. Number one, like kids are so famous for, I mean, we've all done it. Like if you think back, like going home and playing school, even before you start school, like going home and playing school, like you're the teacher and your little stuffed animals or your siblings or whoever, they're your students. But also, if you watch kids that are watching an orchestra or a symphony for the first time, whether it's a video or they're always fascinated
Mhm.
by the moves and the baton and what the conductor is doing. And they will not pick up on the instrument stuff a lot of times, but they will watch and they'll imitate. They don't know
Yes.
what they're doing. I mean, they're not, but they're going to move their hands to match. And I just love that the illustrator put it into that context where this kid is playing, conductor,
Mhm.
because it is very true to life. It is very, very much what kids do. And they do
Mhm.
this just like they become the teacher and they play school, like that whole conductor. And they'll talk about, my students talk about that all the time. In May, we always do, John Williams and Star Wars, and I
Mhm.
always show them one of the videos of him actually conducting. So not
Nice.
only does he play and not only does he write music, but he also conducts. So we talk about what a conductor is and what they do. And they're just so fascinated with, the hands and
Oh, yeah.
you'll just see them even like middle school and high school concerts. here locally, you'll see the littles and they're just like, they'll sit there and
Mhm.
do that with whoever's directing the
Yeah,
music. I love
right.
it.
The conductor, what the conductor does kind of represents what we feel in our hearts, that we want to move, we want to dance.
Yeah.
So that's a very good observation that this little girl, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, how she
Yeah.
represents what kids first are taken by when they see that conductor right up front doing this dramatic hand dancing in front of everybody.
Yeah, they love it. They think it's so fascinating. And like I said, they don't get it yet. They don't know exactly what they're doing, and usually I'll take that as an opportunity to teach them, like, okay, you know how we count 1, 2, 3, 4? Well, they're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. They're doing it like this with their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see that? And we talk about
Mhm.
that, how it connects to the time signature. And I only usually do 3, 4, and 4, 4 time with mine
Yes.
through second grade. But we talk about that, like when if they're doing a waltz or if they're doing something in 3, 4 time, their hands are going to look a little different. And we talk about how John Williams, he's the one that first comes to mind. I do others, but he's the one I do all the time. And I'll say, watch his hands, because and I'll pause it sometimes. What is he telling him right here? Because he'll be like,
Mm.
lifting it. What's he telling them to do? Oh, get louder. What's he telling them to do? What's he telling them to do when he's doing, oh, get quieter? When he does this, what's he wanting them to do? Like really punch it, exactly.
Yes.
So, it's a great conversation. And I mean, this
That's
lends
wonderful.
itself to that, as well. So, I love that. Very cool. And I think we've just trudged all over the next question that I usually ask, which is, where is the music? And I think
Right.
we've
Yeah,
talked so much about that. But
that's right.
is there
Well, I
something
would
else you
say
want to talk
that
about with the music?
I would just say a couple things. As these are short poems, they're rhyming and they're rhythmic. So there's rhythm even just in the phrasing of the poetry. And then, of course, another thing that I incorporated in every poem, except for the conductor poem, because she's not actually creating sound, but there's onomatopoeia that demonstrates the voice of the instrument. So, for instance, for the violin, it's ver, ver, vin, vin. And the illustrator did a neat job of including those words in the illustrations as well. For the cello, it's voom, voom, vim. For the trumpet, whap, whap, whumpet on the trumpet. I think that's my favorite little
Phrase. Yeah.
couplet there. And bump, 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 bump for the tuba. So, there's the musical demonstration in those sound words as well.
Yeah, I guess another thing we could point out too is that when you're talking about the timpani, which I love that you chose
Mm,
the timpani, for one thing, is very orchestral, right? Like you often
yes,
see the timpani or the kettle drums, but you talk
yes,
about the copper. And I love that. Like you really, even though these are short poems, like you've worked in a lot of really nice musical details. And that was one that came to mind, their copper bottoms. Um,
yes. Thank you. And I also, yes, I felt like that one was particularly rich because I also talk about, I mean, the poem is kettle drums.
yeah.
If you cuddle close to tune your copper kettle drums, be careful to remove your ear before the thunder comes.
Yeah.
So thunder in that case is the sound word, but most drums are not pitched, and so kettle drums or timpani, the fact that you have to tune them with a little tuning key and boom, 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 as you're tuning it,
Yeah.
um, that's something kind of unique. So and fun to demonstrate if you actually have a kettle drum on hand to show kids how that tuning happens.
So, as we're talking about this, I have another question. As I was reading a few minutes ago, back through it, and that page made me think about it again, because so this one is the little stuffed bunny, and it's like, make sure to remove your ear. And so so you had written the poems already before the illustrations. Is So how did that particular stanza come about with the ear? Had you
The illustrator chose to make that a bunny. The words were no different.
really?
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if I had to change many things at all because the trumpet one, hear this cool cat, brassy, bold cat, whap, whap, wumpet on the trumpet. She just made that one a cat. And I think that was the only time that I referred to a cat, as far as I can remember. Again, it's been a while.
Oh, right, right,
It's,
right.
it's that production process. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that was just the illustrator thinking, oh, a bunny would be a good one, a flop-eared bunny.
Yeah, to get
To
his ear out
show
of the
that the
way.
ears are, whoa, having to move away. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so fun. So fun. Oh my gosh, I just love this so much. Precious. And I love to, as you were looking at the violin page, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but they're seesawing, like the little characters are actually seesawing
Yes.
on that on
Such an
the,
imaginative job that she
yeah,
did. Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
that it's interesting to note that, illustrator, I mean, authors usually have nothing to do with
right.
how an illustrator chooses to treat the text. And she went above and beyond anything I was imagining and made it much more accessible and fun for kids. So,
And isn't that usually the case? I mean, it's
yes.
like when they tell you to leave room for the illustrator, like I don't know, this is my first time doing this where I have had somebody to illustrate my words, which is an amazing thing just by itself. Just that piece
Yes.
of it is like so amazing. But they tell you to leave room for the illustrator. And so in my mind, and you can look at other books and you know that they're going to enhance and they're going to elevate the text with what they do with the pictures. But until you see them, like you just have, I don't know. I had no idea. Like I had something in my head that I thought my illustrations might would look like, but when they came in, they were absolutely nothing at all. And she too had taken something, and made it completely different. And I loved it so much. And so when they tell you to leave room for the illustrator, it's not just like the details, like I think about, I have a book that I wrote and it was like in a two-story yellow house. And it's like, okay, well, we can get rid of the yellow. We can get rid, um,
Hmm.
because obviously the art's going to show that, right? But
Hmm.
what you don't realize until I think you really get into it is like the illustrator is going to do so much more than make that house a color,
Right.
you know?
Doesn't need to be two-story. Doesn't need to be just boring old yellow. Who knows what they'll do?
What are they
Yeah.
going to do? Like it's so
Yeah.
fascinating to see
It
what they
is.
actually do when you give them room to
Yes.
really exercise their creativity.
That's right. And I have heard it described as they write the second half of the book,
Mhm.
or they create the second half of the book, not sequentially, but on, as the story goes around,
Yeah,
they build in the remainder of the story
for
in ways that
sure.
we can never imagine that enriches the whole path of the story. Yeah.
It really does. It's so utterly amazing. And I love it when that happens. I love it when you
I
get
do
a book
too.
like
I
this.
believe in the process. I wish I could do it all, but I certainly cannot. And yeah, and I love seeing that vision round it all out.
Yeah, I think oftentimes, and this is a discussion that we have often in the writing world, right? Like the author illustrator, the author slash illustrator, the people that can do both. Like, are they more desirable than just
Mhm.
people like us who only write the words and we don't do the pictures? This is one of the things that I've heard editors and agents talk about is that oftentimes they do like having two separate people to work on a book because it provides a much richer experience. And
Mm.
sometimes I think, well, I see the whole thing in my head. I wish I could just write it like you were just saying. I wish
Uh-huh.
I could just draw these pictures. But I wouldn't have drawn the pictures that way. It wouldn't have been nearly as rich a book if I could have
Mhm.
drawn the pictures because in
Mhm.
my head I had the actual story, of and just like you probably, you had these cat illustrations in your head, right? Or you
Mhm.
had your symphonic experiences in your head, but then they don't. Like they have a
Mhm.
whole nother experience that they can bring in, and it's not
Yes.
tied to that that's in our heads.
Yes.
So much
Right.
better.
It is so much better.
So much
We
better.
have to trust the process because it's
We
gonna
do.
be good.
We do. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay, well, geez, we could talk about that for a really long time. That is just so cool. And all the music. So even though these stanzas are very short and they're short little poems, like you really packed a lot. Before we move on, I did want to point out that page that you were reading. Um, hang on. It was the timpani page. Um, all the alliteration too. Like I didn't really pick
Mm.
up on that until you read it. But
Mm.
if you listen, it's kettle drums. If you cuddle close to tune your copper kettle drums, be careful to remove your ear before the thunder comes. So you've got
Mhm.
that hard C all the way
Yeah.
through that stanza. So a lot of really nice alliteration there
Mhm.
too, as well
Thank
as
you.
rhyme
Yeah.
and rhythm.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a percussive sound,
It
so,
is.
yeah, it helps to complement
It does. Yeah, that's
what's
perfect.
being talked about.
So, Janet, as you think about when parents or other teachers are sharing this book with little kids, what is something that you think they might possibly overlook that you think, gee, I really hope they don't. I hope they don't miss this. I really hope that people pay attention to blank and point it out to these children. What would that be?
Mhm. Well, as I think about that, I hope that the book holds up to repeat readings, and there are plenty of little things for kids to notice visually, um, sounds and questions to arise from the poems as they tie in with the pictures. But I think just as this, the full product of the book came is as it exists, not just my poems. I most of all love the playfulness of the whole package. Playing with the idea of music, the idea of instruments, the idea of being a musician. I
Hmm.
mean, to have your, blanket teddy be a musician or any of these animals, to have the little girl with her wand with the star on the end be the conductor. I hope they play up just the sheer fun of the whole thing. Um, I was honored to have Betsy Bird of
Oh,
Fuse 8 in her blog. She was reviewing some books coming out from the Creative Company. Creative Editions is the name of this publisher, and they often do poetry books and things like that. And she's had a line in her short review that said something like, because let's face it, going to a concert can be intimidating. And
mm,
it's true. I don't feel intimidated because I've been going to the symphony since I was, a preschooler. That's something my
oh,
single mom
wow.
had season tickets to our local symphony and our local ballet, and we always went. And I feel very comfortable in those settings. But my husband did not grow up in those
Okay.
settings, and even now he's happy to go to the symphony with me. But when we're there, he's always nervous about when do I clap, when do I not clap, what if I cough. It's a very sterile environment for somebody who's, I shouldn't say sterile because there's plenty of dynamism and all kinds of stuff that's happening there. But I should say it can feel like a formal environment
Yeah.
to some people. So I love that this book really brings the fun forward and the creativity and imagination forward. And I hope that parents can find ways at their local library. Sometimes there are free concerts. If you can't uh, buy tickets to go to a larger performance. There are other ways to find opportunities to be around live music. And I hope this book can be kind of a buffer
Mm,
to help prepare for let's go and let's just have fun and listen.
I love that. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like that's such an important aspect of the book and also right in that I mean, how what a blessing that you were able to do that
Yeah,
early. Like,
appreciate
yeah,
my mom
for
doing that. Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I think I was, gosh, I don't know. I might have been in middle school maybe before I ever encountered like formal. I mean, I started band myself in middle school,
Mhm.
but I don't think I had. I mean, we were we live out in the country. Jana and I talk about how
Yeah.
we're out on the farm. We live out in the country and we're in a small town, and so there's just not a lot of opportunities. And my family was
Hmm.
not very well off, and so and they were not really raised with that opportunity either. So it's amazing that you were, but you're right. Like a lot of our kids are not blessed with that
Hmm.
opportunity. And what we do bring into the classroom, whether it be via video or
Yes.
ourselves performing, or as
Hmm.
you and I were talking, having local musicians coming in and playing for the students so that
Yes.
they can experience what that looks like and feels like. And that's another nice thing to point out is that when schools can bring in like from there, I work with my local university. When you can bring people from the outside in their turf where they already feel comfortable, that's another way to make it less intimidating when they do get the
Yes.
opportunity to go and experience it in that more formal setting.
Yes, right. I've just walked down my hall and there they were right in my space. And
Yeah.
I've experienced this before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also say one thing I wanted to mention, and I sent this via email to you, but if it helps to also add the third dimension, which is really the primary element of hearing music, to actually hear the music, if you are able to put in the show notes that Spotify link that I provided, I went through, what was available on Spotify to find just solo instruments, by themselves without an orchestra or piano in most cases backing them up. Um, but uh, little excerpts. Parents can click on that Spotify list and play little excerpts after each poem if they want. And I try to choose, as I said, solo instruments playing that match our instruments, but also pieces, or in some cases, they're just etudes or little studies or practice pieces that kind of capture the feeling of the piece. So, like the one for the cello, the cello poem talks about stormy seas, and that little cello piece is deep and kind of like alarming. When I played it at a library, an older man walked by and went, "Wow!" He heard the music. It's stormy seas. And then the one about the giraffe playing the clarinet is kind of kooky and fun and lighthearted. So um, finding or using a resource like that to bring a little bit of ear association for what that instrument sounds like can also prepare kids for, okay, I've heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah, that timbre. I'm really amazed. I was last week we were doing Day of the Dead. We were talking I'm doing this year
Mm.
music around the world, and so we were last week focusing on the upcoming Day of the Dead celebration, Dia de
Yes.
Muertos, and I was playing a piece of music for them to keep the steady beat to, but it
Mm.
started with a beautiful violin piece, just a little
Mm.
introduction, and then it switches to this amazing. Now I'm a trumpeter, so I'm totally biased.
Ah.
Oh my gosh, this gorgeous trumpet solo. And, I didn't tell them. I was like, I want you to listen and see if you can tell me the instruments that you hear. There's going to be one at the beginning, then it's going to change to a different instrument. See if you can name those two instruments.
Mm.
And so many of them could. And I was
Oh,
super
wonderful.
impressed, even down
Yeah.
to kindergarten. Like they were like, oh, that's the violin. And I'm like, yes, it is. And it switched to the trumpet. And a few got that wrong, but most of them got it. So getting
Mm.
them used to that timbre, just, what is the
Mhm.
timbre of this instrument? And that they have different timbres because you're right, they're not going to know that just from looking. They're going to get a sense of that from the words that you've chosen, but they're not really going to hear that unless you do pull in
Mhm.
the actual musical
Yes.
aspect.
When I have done events with this book, with live with children, it's really fun to show the pictures, read the poem, and then play that little excerpt and see them listen to it, and it makes more sense. So, and
Absolutely.
even more so when there have been live instruments that have joined me, that's super fun. So, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you're going to get to do for your book when it comes out, and I hope to have more opportunities with this one, with that too, with
Yeah.
live musicians.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got some good opportunities coming up. I'm excited to hear more about those as they
Yeah,
come to
yours
fruition.
too. Thank you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, oh my goodness. We could talk so long about this book. So many great things, but I know our time is winding down. So can you share with us, you've had a very busy year with 3 books coming out. Do you have anything new coming down the pipeline, or are you going to take a little rest? Like what's coming for you?
Right. Well, I am always writing picture books, and so several are out on submission right now, and we never know what's going to happen.
Right.
But I do have one in the pipeline. I just signed the contract a few weeks ago and got the first payment wired today. I got a
Yay.
message about that. That is going to be a nativity book
Oh, how
called
nice.
When Love Was Born. It's based on the Christina Rossetti poem and carol, Love Came Down at Christmas.
Yeah.
And that will probably be out in 2 years. So I have time to wait for that one of the next 2 years. I have been working on a young adult novel. I've gone through a few drafts of it, and I'm about to start the next draft after having full notes from my agent. So I will continue to work on those picture books and really hone in on the novel, and look forward to that next book in 27 and hopefully others to follow.
Nice. How exciting. Lots of good stuff coming your way.
I hope
Very
so.
good.
Yes. Thank you. And for you
Yeah.
too, Tani. More
Yeah.
good
Well,
stuff to come.
yeah, well, let's hope so. That's why we're here and why we're doing
Yeah.
this, right?
Yes.
We love sharing these messages with kids and writing books that give them hope and comfort and
Mhm.
knowledge and so many great
Mhm.
things that
Yes.
our world definitely needs more of those positive things. And I'm
Yes.
happy to be a part of that. And I know you are too.
Me too. Yes, with our littlest ones.
That's
Uh-huh.
right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming to visit with us again at PBJamz, and I hope we'll get a chance to see you again.
Thank you, Tani. I have a feeling you will.
I
And
hope
I you.
so. Well,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
guys for joining us too, and we hope you will join us again here for the next episode of PB Jams. Until then, keep the music playing. Bye, y'all. All right.
Jams, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PB Jams, songish books and bookish songs, tips for music